Hi, everyone. It's Tessa.
And Joe.
From the Unveiling Paradise podcast.
Tessa, summer is almost here, and so many of our listeners are about to have their epic destination wedding.
And we are so excited for you guys.
Before the big day, guys, we want you to make sure you listen to these 3 episodes.
Episode 62, Deep Diving Your Wedding Ceremony.
Episode 53, Questions Your Wedding Guests Will Ask.
And episode 31, the final countdown to your wedding day.
And if you're planning your wedding here in Hawaii, hit us up and ask us about our Unveiling Paradise podcast promo.
Happy planning. Hey, Jet Setters. How's it going? Hey, Joe.
Hey, Tessa.
How are you?
I am so good. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I bet you're super stoked about today.
This one's going to be an easy one for me.
You keep saying that. Okay, so what are we talking about today?
It should be an easy one. We're talking about photography.
Of course we are.
I got a lot to say, but also you do.
I do.
All right.
I think it's going to be great.
Okay, so we actually have a lot of things to talk about. We're going to give you some of our tips that we think are really helpful, and also just a little bit of information on how do you even get started, with the process of choosing a photographer.
Right.
What are some of the things that we really want you to know when you're making that big decision?
Right. We're going to talk about photography, but just kind of start high level of where do you even get started, right? What are we looking for in photography? How do you choose a photographer that matches for your wedding? And then I want to kind of go over some tips. Some of these are tips that you had told me. Other photographers have given tips as well. And so I think I just want to kind of go over some high-level tips on how to find the best photographer for you.
The right fit for you.
The right fit for you. Yes, you're correct.
Perfect.
Welcome to Unveiling Paradise, your go-to destination wedding podcast. I'm Tessa, wedding planner and owner of Fred & Kate Events.
And I'm Joe, wedding and adventure photographer of Joseph Esser Photography. We are based in Hawaii, one of the biggest, most popular locations for destination weddings.
We want to share our real-life experiences with you, give you insight from a professional's perspective, and still make sure you're having fun in the process.
We're huge believers in the fact that planning a destination wedding can be one of the most amazing experiences, and we want to bring you along.
We're so excited to talk with you about weddings, Hawaii, and everything else under the sun.
So pack your bags and let's get started.
Before we start talking about some of the tips that photographers are sharing, I have some general questions about wedding photography for you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Let's get started.
Yes. Okay, so first, I guess my question is, right, if someone just got engaged, they're starting their wedding planning, photography is very important, I think.
Yeah, I think most couples see the value of photography.
Right.
Right? Because it's like probably the one tangible thing you take away from your wedding day. You eat your food, you listen to music, but it's all gone by the end of the day.
Right.
But your photos, that's something that, stays with you. It's something that you're able to look back at your wedding day and kind of relive those moments.
Right. And video.
And video is another part of that, right? So Some companies do photo, some companies do video, some companies do both. Again, these are really big decisions to make because it's important, right? And I think it's one of the more important, vendors that you book.
Okay, so question. I guess my question is, how do you choose a photographer, or what should I even consider when I'm looking for photography?
Yeah, okay, great question. I think to start out, you have to keep in mind that all photographers are not created the same. And I always share this. If you give 5 photographers the exact same gear, the same cameras, the same lenses, the same lighting, they will shoot completely differently, right? So the first part is trying to understand what is your style and what is the photographers that you're looking at style.
How would a couple even know what their photography style is?
Well, I think you probably can find that out by looking at other photos and saying, I really resonate with these images.
Right.
And then from there, you can kind of dissect and say, okay, it seems to me that you like really vibrant, poppy, photos, which is a way that a photographer might shoot or edit an image, or you might like more muted colors, which is, traditional film aesthetic.
Right.
And that's the thing. I think that just like looking through other weddings and getting inspiration from like other photographers' websites, you can kind of get a sense of what images resonate with you and which ones don't.
Right. And I think, whenever I talk to couples, when they don't know what their style is or how to even start, I'll just say, send me pictures that you like. Send me things you like, or send me pictures you really don't like, and then tell me why. And I can kind of help direct you, okay, this is style that you like, or you like someone that uses a lot of flash because you like those dramatic photos or whatever. It's also, for me, coming from a non-photography standpoint, we don't know, the apertures or the lighting or I don't know, all those fancy terms.
Yep.
For me as a bride or a groom, it's do I like how these photos make me feel?
Right.
Right. And that's really important when you're looking for photography. It's how do these pictures make you feel? And then finding the photographer for that.
Right. And
Does that make sense?
I think that totally makes sense. And I think that, there's, just to kind of break down this a little bit more, you have two ways you can think about photography. You can think of the way that those images are shot and edited. So, again, we talked about, a sort of like a natural light aesthetic versus, a studio light, kind of poppy, vibrant sort of thing. But also the feel, right? So how does that couple look like in the photo? There's kind of two spectrums on that too. So some photographers love to do a lot of posing.
Right.
And some photographers don't like to do that at all. And they'd rather have a more kind of candid, in the moment sort of feel for all their photos. So, I think that kind of looking at how do you see yourself in these photos? Could you see yourself being edited this way?
Right.
And posed this way? I think that just like finding yourself in someone else's photos. Could you see yourself in their portfolio or in their images?
And sometimes though, I think the couple needs help with that, right? So they may see themselves in a certain type of photo, but if they're not ever in front of a camera, we also need to find a photographer that will take them there, that will help them, right? Versus just go for it, be candid. Like, I'm going to be honest, my husband and I, there is no way we could candid it and look natural.
Right.
I need someone to pose me, but naturally pose me,
Yeah.
And I think that's important too.
I think that's a really important point, right? Your photographer is going to be that individual that brings that out of you. If you've never been photographed before, you're going to really be relying on your photographer to help you with that. So if you are, again, every couple is totally different. If you are just naturally playful, you're probably not going to need as much help.
Right.
But if you're like, you already know you're awkward and you're like,
that's me.
you're gonna probably resonate with a photographer that's going to be more hands-on,
right?
And help you through that,
right? And so I think for me that ties into the photographer's personality. In addition to just having them kind of support you and guide you, I personally think it's really important that you get along with your photographer. And what I mean by that is you don't have to be best friends and go for drinks, but this person will be with you for the majority of the day, for very intimate parts of your day. I think it's really important that you like that person, right? If you feel like they're mean to you or they're udgy or they don't get you, it's going to be uncomfortable for you all day.
Right. But also just keep this in mind, right? Some couples want their photographer to be real hands-on and, up in their face and doing, like putting them in poses and directing them. And for some couples, that would be really uncomfortable.
Right.
And they would like their photographer to be more removed.
Right. But you still have to like them. Again, they don't have to, like to me, liking doesn't mean up in your face all the time. You don't have to be friends, but you need to feel comfortable around that person.
Right.
Regardless of if they are up close or from a distance. Right?
Yeah, for sure. So again, if we just break it into this sort of spectrum, on the one end you have the director, on the other end you have the photojournalist, right? And so the director is going to be the one that's super hands-on. The photojournalist, he's going to be hiding, in the bushes and taking pictures, and so what would be the right fit, And so I think a lot of wedding photographers tend to be probably more in the middle, right? Where they, instead of being the director or the photojournalist, they probably are more coaches, so they see when things are going great, they don't want to jump in. If there's natural chemistry, you're shooting it in that moment. But if you you have an awkward couple, you need to help them, get comfortable and, be in that moment and make it look natural. No, nobody wants to look awkward in their photos, right?
Right. And have you had couples like that where you needed to jump in more than you had thought you would need to?
All the time.
Yeah. And I think you're really good at that. And to me, that is a sign of a good photographer, right? It's being able to adjust the amount of attention the couple needs, right? To get them these pictures that feel really natural, even though it may not have felt natural in that moment.
This is a great transition into the next part of our episode and how to get the most out of your photography. Before we jump into that, though, I just want to say something really quick.
Yeah.
Wedding photography, there tends to be really like 4 different parts of your wedding day that we tend to photograph. You have your prep, which is like the getting ready details and, sort of before you see each other. You have your ceremony, you have your portraits, and you have your reception. So typically...
What are portraits?
Like, your couples, like your couples romantic pictures, your wedding party, your family photos. Those are, when you have that time dedicated with your photographer to do those photos. But I'd say for most weddings, when we're talking about wedding photography, that tends to be what most of our couples want to have covered. So before we jump into all the tips, I know we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. I just wanted to say that, this tends to be how most wedding photographers look at a wedding day.
The first tip I want to talk about to get the most out of your wedding photography is get the biggest room that you possibly can for getting ready in the morning.
So for your getting ready pictures.
Yeah, so for getting ready in the morning, when you're waking up and you have all your girls with you, your moms may be there, anyone else that's going to be with you, you have your vendors, so your hair and makeup artist, photography, videography, wedding planner, your bouquets are going to come, all the flowers are there, right? It can get very full in your room very quickly.
It's going to feel that way. Like if everything's cramped and you're like, there's no space.
It's squishy.
Yeah, there's no space to work. It's going to be probably uncomfortable to be, taking pictures in that space.
Right. And so, it's always nice for me if you can get one of those suites or a one bedroom where you can get dressed in one room and prep and whatnot and have everyone kind of staging in the other side. And you have like the food, people will have like their Costco platters of cheeses and fruits and whatever. It all stays out of the way. And then all the photos and the pretty looking things down one side.
Right. And actually that's a great tip, right? Is about having a clean room, not just a big room, but having a clean room.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's not helpful if it's big and still messy.
And I always feel like it's the guys that make the biggest mess, but maybe not.
Oh my God, it always is. And I walked into like the room before and it smells like boy. Just that dirty boy smell. I'm like, what's happening in here?
But for our photos, right? So when we think of like these prep photos, we're shooting the dress, we're shooting all those details, the candid behind the scenes,
right.
Like makeup and getting in the dress. Like if you have a big room, we have more space to work. If you have a clean room, we're not getting like McDonald's wrappers and whatever random stuff. And it just looks way better in photos. So a lot of photographers, we use the term like have a junk corner, right? Where you have
right.
all your crap, your suitcases, everything in a corner that's not going to be in the photos.
Right.
Right.
And a lot of times, like you said, it's strategy, right? So for us as wedding planners, when we get there, a lot of times I'll check in with the photographer, like what angle are you getting? Like, do I need to fix this bed? Where is the junk corner, right? Where do I throw this stuff?
I feel like a lot of times it's either the coordinator or the photographer who end up being like the room service too.
Oh,
so
of
we're
course.
like straightening things up.
I'm
and
like grabbing all the trash,
Right.
taking it outside, fixing the bed,
Right.
making a clean tuck.
But it makes all the difference in photos.
I think so. I mean, I hope so. I hope I'm not fixing someone's bed for no reason.
All right. Well, great. All right. Moving on. We've talked about this in the past. If you're up to it, do a first look.
Do a first look.
Right.
Yes, do
And
it.
so again, we talked about like if there are those 4 parts of the day, if you have your prep, your ceremony, your reception, do your portraits before the ceremony.
Right.
And then you knock all those out and you get more time with your photographer. You're not rushing through those shots. For me as a photographer, it's really nice to have that time just set aside for our couple, for our family members, for our bridal party, so we can have beautiful photos done way beforehand.
Right. And then the couple and their family and friends can enjoy cocktail hour.
Yeah.
A lot of times I see, and I'm for first looks. So let me make that clear. I love first looks. I want them to do it. But when we're starting to do a lot of the photos during cocktail hour, not only does it take the couple away, but if they have a lot of really big family combinations, now you pulled all your family from cocktail hour too.
Right.
Which I guess is a pro if you're worried about your bar tab, right? You're saving money that way.
Right.
So I guess it could be a win for people that want to save money on their bar.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's super funny, but practicality wise, it makes sense.
Right.
It makes sense for your photos and you're not rushing through your day. And that's, I think, as we shoot weddings, we don't want you to feel stressed out and feel like you're trying to do too much. And I think that's why we always recommend doing a first look.
Right. And I think, as a wedding planner, just to circle back and to just emphasize your point, is having the couple as stress-free as possible is my personal goal. Having them do the first look and spacing the day a little better, it causes less stress. And to me, that's a huge win.
Right. And if you're not stressed out, your photos are going to be better, right?
Yeah, you're going to smile.
Right.
You're going to So, okay, quick story. I knew this photographer. He was a videographer years ago. And I just remember him telling me about this one bride he had that was stressed the whole day. She had DIY'd everything. And she had this like stress line on her forehead. And he's like, it was in everything because he knew she was stressed. I think they may have been friends or whatever, but she just had this like wrinkle on her forehead because she was thinking about all these things happening throughout the day, right? So I don't know if he edited them out or whatever, but like the stress will show up. Try your hardest to let go and trust your vendors and trust, your photographer.
Let's circle back to the beginning of our conversation. When you're choosing your vendors, when you're choosing your photographer, you want to be around people that are going to help you and not stress you out.
Correct.
I always think I always share this. Your photographer, you should choose a photographer like Cesar Millan is like with his dogs, right?
Talk about him a lot.
But, it's like the energy. Does the photographer give off like a nervous, stressed out energy? Or do they give off a confident energy? Do they give off a calming energy?
Right.
Is this somebody who's going to draw the best out of you or is it going to draw the worst out of you?
Right.
And that's super important.
I agree. I 100% agree. Like for me, trying to keep a calm energy for everyone is my goal.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What do you think about unplugged weddings?
Okay.
You know what unplugged wedding is?
I know what an unplugged wedding. Do you want me to explain to everybody what an unplugged wedding is?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay, so I think unplugged weddings are when you're getting married, and if you think about a normal wedding, you have say 100 people sitting there, and then your photographer's trying to get photos, and you have like Auntie with her iPad trying to take pictures. All of your guests have their iPhones trying to record it, take pictures, whatever. So in these pictures, you just see all of these electronic devices, your phones, your iPads, cameras. Uncle has like his big camera that he's like standing up in the pictures. So an unplugged ceremony is basically you asking all of your guests to keep their devices in their pockets, in their bags, and just be present.
Don't you think that a lot of guests sort of feel a responsibility to try to document
the wedding? Yeah, but
and that's stressful for them, right?
It's stressful for them. And also for me, like you're paying a lot of money for photo and video, so let them do their jobs. I am definitely all about an unplugged wedding.
Wait, so how do you even put that out there to your guests?
Right. So what I've seen a couple of really cool things. I think the easiest way is because people will have a sign, but I think people choose to ignore the sign. Right. I like having the officiant announce it. Please put your cell phones away. Please, whatever, enjoy, be present.
Right.
I think that's a nicer way of asking is the couple wants you to be present. So please put away your electronic devices.
Yeah, and trust your photographer and videographer to get all those shots.
And so a wedding that I've seen really recently that I loved, and this is, I don't know if you've seen this before. It's the first time I've seen it, and it's ingenious. I think I've told a couple photographers already, and I love it. So basically, the couple wanted an unplugged wedding, but she was like, I know my auntie's going to take pictures. Like, there's no stopping her, whatever. So what happened is they walked in, they were at the altar, and the officiant told everyone, and we talked about this before, and I was like, this is great. The officiant told everyone, okay, guys, take out your phones, take out your cameras, and take your pictures now.
Right.
So before the ceremony started, the bride and groom were there, they posed, the officiant stepped to the side, everyone got their pictures, and then the officiant was like, okay, put your phones away and just be present.
And did everybody?
They did.
Hey.
Even Auntie, who she was like, I guarantee you she's not going to do it. She put it away.
All right.
Because she got her money shot.
Right.
What do you think?
No, I like that. I like that. I mean, sometimes the officiant will announce, this is an unplugged wedding, and then, half the guests just don't care.
Right.
But
that's why I think if you give them the opportunity to do it first, maybe 70% will put it away.
And that's something, right?
It's more. I don't know.
So Tessa, let's turn to our next big tip. What do you have?
Yeah. So basically, the next tip is to keep your photo list light. And what that means, right, is I've had couples, and I think we've talked about this, where they're very specific about the photos that they want. So in addition to their family photo combination, so mom, dad, bride and groom, mom, dad, groom, mom, whatever.
Right.
In addition to all of those photo combinations, they also have like bride looking pensive in the mirror, bride putting dress on, bride, so just those things for me, I'm like, this is a typical detail that the photographer will capture throughout the day. So do you need to list it all?
Groom putting on his tie.
Groomsmen touching his jacket. And so for me, what I find, and again, I definitely defer to you as the professional here, but when you give them this really, really extensive list, you're forcing the photographer to take his attention away from the creative aspects and really just trying to check things off a list.
Do you think it's horrible that most photographers will ignore those shot lists?
Well, do you know that as a planner, if someone does it, and I know the photographers often ignore it, I will be like frantically checking it off to make sure this happens.
Right, but I mean, sometimes we get these lists and it's just like, it's so basic. It's like, shot of the wedding gown. Of course, we're going to take a picture of that. The shot of the rings, of course. And like when we shoot, in our heads, we've got a pre-programmed set of pictures that we always want to get.
Right.
But we want to do that you're right, like in the most creative and original way. So it's like if it's weird for the bride to be looking pensive, I don't even know. I'm gonna have to look at what that actually means.
But I guess if you get one of those extensive lists, do you tell the couple like, hey, let me do my thing?
We always do. And so we help our clients with making sure that we have a good idea of their aesthetic at first, right? But again, like I think the point that you're trying to make is, you want your couple to have their own wedding, have their own wedding photos. And we've talked about this before. When we get these Pinterest boards, and it's like, okay, here you go. Here's like, 1,000 different photos for inspiration. If it's not raining, we're not going to get the raining shots. If it's not snowing, we're not going to get the snow shots. And that's somebody else's wedding. Are you a naturally pensive person? If you're not, let's photograph who you are, So if you're,
but what if I want to be pensive on my wedding day?
What is can you define pensive?
No, I can't. You're the professor, remember? I just throw out big words to impress you.
All right. Well, you've impressed me. It sounds like you're like kind of angry.
I think it's thoughtful. I think it's like you're trying to be thoughtful and like reflective.
Yeah, it seems angry. To me, I think I attract happy people, fun people.
Not pensive people.
I don't think yeah. But if you're in a moment, be in the moment. Don't I'm going to be in this, I'm going to put it on the shot list that I'm going to be in this moment at this point. It doesn't make any sense, right?
Right.
Photograph it as natural as possible. And of course, I was kind of joking, but we do look through those shot lists, but some of it is just like, you don't have to stress out about those shots if you're working with a professional.
Right.
We know that we want to get the big, kiss shot at the ceremony.
Right. And I do have couples that list that, kiss at the aisle, kiss at the end.
We don't need that.
Each couple of, the partners walking into the ceremony, parents walk. I mean, I don't have to list it all to you.
Groom crying. It's like, well,
I'll pinch them to make them cry.
All right. Perfect. Well, I think that's really helpful. Let's move on. Okay. I wanted to talk about this, and this is a request that we get a lot.
Right.
It's about table shots. Okay. So table photos.
Like of tequila?
No. So table shots is something that gets requested quite a bit. And it's where the bride and groom will go around to each of the tables at the wedding reception, and they'll take a picture with that table.
Got it.
Right. So we've talked about this before. I want to highly encourage you, don't do it. First off, I just don't think that you do anything with those photos.
Right. Agree.
And it's like a lot of times it's random combinations of random, like work friends or whatever. If you really want those photos, if you really want those to look professional, put that in your formal shot list.
Right.
Don't do it at the reception.
But I think it can be at the reception too. So this is what I've seen in the past, right? Couples want to do those table shots, right, with every single group. For me, like table 12, you may have 5 cousins and 5 of your work friends. And there's no connection between them, but you have to fit 10 people at a table, right? So why would you take that picture?
Right.
Right? So my thought would be, like you said, do all of your work friends, because they may be spread between 2 tables, right? So if that's really important, then list your work friends as a formal photo.
Right.
We may not have time to do it during cocktail hour because you may be going out for sunset photos. You may want to enjoy it, but during dinner or right before we start the program, we can get those pictures. The MC can easily call them up. You can stand somewhere. It doesn't have to be over your food, and you can get those pictures that are really important. So your work friends, your school friends, your college friends, whatever else it is, all your cousins, whatever you want to do, and get those intentional photos versus random pictures with everyone there.
Right. Nobody ever does anything with those table photos.
Right.
It's just, it never looks great. And I totally agree with you. Like, be intentional with your photos. Don't just try to take pictures of every single person there. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Do a group photo. Do one big group photo if you want everybody.
Right. The next point that we want to talk about is kind of basic, but I think really important. And it's trusting your photographer. Right?
What do you mean by that?
So, if you're hiring a professional photographer, which I highly recommend, like don't find the $50 Craigslist photographer.
Or your uncle who has a camera.
Or your uncle who has a professional camera. I mean, we all have that uncle. If you're hiring a photographer, you should find someone that you trust, right? Basically, right, you hire someone, you're spending a lot of money on them. You want to be able to let go and trust. So again, let them be creative. Let them do their thing. Don't give them that very, very, very detailed shot list from beginning to end of day. Like, this is what they're there for. They're going to help you get the pictures that you want. the standard ones, plus, right, some of their creative. Like, this is what they're known for. I do a lot of weddings at the same hotels over and over, and you tend to see a lot of the same pictures. But if you have a professional photographer, if you have photographers that are creative and you like their styles, they will often find those kind of hidden gems or hit it from a different angle where it looks completely different. I'm like, oh, what's this? Where is this angle? And I think that is a huge part of trusting your photographer to do what they do.
To kind of add on to that too, Tessa, I think that when you're choosing your photographer, choose that photographer whose style you like. Don't try to make your photographer changed into a different style.
For sure. Yeah. And I've definitely seen that where they booked a photographer and I don't even know why they booked them, because when they are showing me pictures that they liked, I'm like, this is nothing like it. And I don't know if it's for price or just they liked the person, but I've definitely seen them, and unfortunately, I've seen the result where at the end of the day, they're not thrilled with their photos because they didn't get what they thought they were going to get.
Right. If you're looking at someone's portfolio, you're going to, again, like, do you see yourself in these photos? Or do you see yourself in someone else's photos? You should book that photographer then.
Yeah, exactly.
Just following up on what you're saying about trust, I think that's the thing is, like, you hire someone with that specific aesthetic, expect them to deliver those types of photos,
right?
And don't be, like, sometimes couples I can tell are anxious about their photos and how they're looking at their photos. It's okay to ask your photographer, can I see how I'm looking in these photos?
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that's nice. I don't know if I would.
Some photographers don't like to do that, but I mean, I think sometimes when we're like taking pictures of a couple and they're like, oh, is this looking good? You show them a picture and they're like, oh, wow, look at how we look, and
what if they're like, ooh, look at how we look? That would be me.
Then you're in trouble. You have like a lot more time to go through the day. Very awkward.
When I have couples that are booking photography, a lot of times they end up booking someone, say, that's $1,000 cheaper. And that's why they book it. And it's not their aesthetic, it's not their style, but they're like, we're going to save $1,000. The way that I think about it and what I tell people is, if you don't like their style, you're paying X amount of money for something you're not even going to like. You might as well find a way to adjust your budget and get the one that you really, really love, right? You know this photographer, you trust their style. If you book the other one, you're not going to
ask them to like shift their aesthetic to the other photographers.
Yeah, you're setting yourself up to fail. You're not putting trust in the photographer because you're going to be saying, I know that this is your style, but I want this instead. Right? It's just not a win.
Right.
For either of you.
To come at this from a very humble place, I think I'm a great photographer, but I'm not.
Super humble.
wait, hold on. But I'm not everybody's photographer.
Yeah.
I can be a great fit for the right couple. But if a couple is, this is my aesthetic and mine is different.
Right.
I'm not going to feel like horrible if that's their aesthetic, and we get that a lot where someone will say, I really like this type of photography. And we're like, that's not us. That's
right.
Not
and
us.
Have you turned them away? Not like rudely, but like if you know it's not going to be a good fit for you as a photographer, do you think it's important to let the couple know that?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. At the beginning, right?
Right.
You don't want to be like going through photos and trying to edit into a completely different style after the fact.
Right.
Then it's not going to be that photographer's best work or that photographer's specialty or whatever that makes them that unique photographer. And I think that's so important. Again, in the process of choosing your photographer, starting with that foundation.
Right.
That aesthetic, that style, the personality, make sure that you're choosing that person. I mean, there's so many great photographers. Can you find someone that fits your budget too? Of course you can.
Right.
But don't just go for budget. Don't go for cheap, right? You're not going to get what you want.
Well, you get what you pay for,
right?
And I think that's our final tip is if you're just trying to find the $50 cheap Craigslist photographer, you're going to get just that.
Totally. It's hiring a professional, right? You're not going to find a professional studio on Craigslist, I don't think, right?
You might.
And there's all these horror stories of couples who go for cheap, choose someone who's clearly their aesthetic is not in line with the couple's aesthetic, and they just have bad experiences. I don't know if you've seen this, Tessa, but there's this story of this photographer. I think it was in India, right? And he got super upset because the couple hadn't provided a meal for him, and he had been with them for all day long, and he ends up in the middle of the reception just throwing his hands up and he deletes all their photos and he walks out.
What?
Yeah, you've seen that?
I mean, I think I read something like I didn't realize. I mean, I think I saw something about a photographer delete. I didn't realize it was because he wasn't fed.
But
God.
so I mean, again, like you want to always work with professionals.
Right.
At the get-go. And most professional studios, like, I don't know, but
would you delete pictures?
That would never happen for any professional.
That's crazy.
Right? It's a crazy story. But like, again, like when you trust a professional, when you hire a professional, they're going to cost more than your uncle or your Craigslist photographer.
Right.
They have insurance. They have professional camera gear. They've got, they shoot with
backups and
multiple,
all of that stuff.
multiple cameras, multiple lenses, multiple flashes, whatever they have. And that's what a professional brings to the table.
Right. So I have a quick story to tell. And I had this couple, it was years ago, and there's two brides. And I think one of them, her father had a friend who does art photography or something like that. And so he was like, she can do this wedding for cheap. And so they said, okay, great, we'll hire her. I think they had her for like 6 hours or something. When they got their photos back, what they didn't realize, they were all raw. They were so dark, and they're not photographers. They didn't know what to do with these pictures. I think we had, I don't know, hundreds of photos, and I think we got 2 good photos out of it.
Yeah.
And it was, I was so sad because it was a beautiful hotel. They spent a lot of money on their decor. Their ceremony was gorgeous. Again, like, I'm not a professional. I don't know. I'm sure they could have done something or taken it somewhere to fix or adjust, but they got literally every picture. They were like out of focus. They were dark. They were whatever. Like, it just looked awful. Right. And they were so sad. And their regret, was I wish we had paid for a professional wedding photographer.
Yeah, and that's a great distinction, right?
Right.
Somebody who shoots models, it's a super controlled environment.
Right.
You have a location at a certain time of the day.
The lighting is perfect.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. But when it's a wedding, okay, so sounds weird, but there's a song and dance to a wedding. Like there's
don't dance.
No, but there is a song and dance to a wedding. Like I know when the bride is walking down the aisle with her dad, what side of the aisle I want to be so I can catch that handoff. And that comes from years of experience.
Right.
And if you don't know where to be in those moments, you're going to be caught off guard. You're going to miss shots. You're not going to be delivering what a couple expects from a wedding photographer.
Right. And that's the distinction, right? Wedding photography is very different than other types of portraits, artwork, models, whatever.
You can be a great landscape photographer, but have no idea how to photograph a couple,
right?
Live, breathing couple,
a live couple. Well, it's not just a couple, but it's also understanding that when they do their first kiss, there is likely a chance that other people are going to try to get that shot too. So you're having like 100 different amateur photographers competing with you for that shot.
Right. Okay, so I said earlier that I'm humble. And
this sounds like it's not going to be humble.
I'm humble in the sense that I am not the right fit for everybody.
Okay.
Right. My aesthetic is specific to me, what I see as beautiful. Right. And all photographers have their own aesthetic. But I will say, and this is the the not humble part, wedding photographers, I think, are the most talented photographers of all photographers because we shoot everything.
Right.
A photographer who shoots models, like it's a very specific type of photography. Photographers have to know how to pose people, have to know how to pose individuals and couples and models, right? We also have to shoot so many more things, right? We have details,
right?
The rings, the dress, all these things. Candidates, we have to be great at shooting photojournalistically, documenting moments. Things that are moving,
right.
Kids that are running down the, like all this. And I think that's something that wedding photographers have their own unique skill set. And right. I think we're great at it. I think we're great at many different types of photography.
Right. And I agree. It's definitely a skill. And in addition to all of that, like I was saying, it's like you guys are paparazzi too, right? You're competing with other people, their friends and family that are trying to get those same shots. And I'm sure you've seen it. And I feel like I'm going off a tangent, but whenever we're doing family photos, you have like someone in the back taking pictures and now all the eyes are there. So I'm like, no. So I'll often be kind of like interviewing and be like, if you put your camera up, they're not looking at the photographer anymore, right? So it's trying to compete with so many different things. So I 100% agree.
And we have to direct. A lot of times we're directing, especially during the family photos.
Yes.
Okay, everybody, we let the family members take their pictures first. Yeah. We say, family, this couple's hired a professional. we want to make sure that everyone's eyes are on our camera, and it's
Right.
not, and that's how you can ruin a photo is if
Yeah,
you have
there's people looking all
3
over.
cameras. Yeah.
Yes.
And they're like, where do we look? Where do we look?
That's a pet peeve of mine.
But again, and that's something that, a professional brings to the table,
Yes.
years of experience and knowing how to manage those situations as well. All right, so we really just kind of talked more about tips about wedding photography. We haven't really gotten into too much about how to choose your wedding photographer. So maybe we can, and the different aesthetics and styles, maybe we can file that for another episode.
Definitely. I think we can do like a 10-part series about photography. There's so many things to unwrap, but that's why I think it was important to just give high-level tips of what to consider and think about to get the most of your wedding photography.
Yes.
Okay, so to do a quick recap, I think one of the first tips that we said was to get a big room if possible so you have space to get ready in the morning.
And make sure that room is nice and clean so you're not getting photos of junk.
Or at least tell your photographer to clean it for you.
Yeah. I'll put on my apron.
Thank you.
Okay. Second, we talked about the first look. If you're up to it, do a first look.
For sure.
It makes all the difference.
So important. The next one is to do an unplugged wedding. So, have your officiant, have someone announce, put your cameras, put your phones away, and just be present in the moment.
And it looks great for photos when you don't see Auntie's iPads.
It's amazing.
all over the place.
Yep.
And make sure you keep your photo list light. We love detailed family photo shot lists, but we don't need a list of every single thing that happens at a wedding. Like exchanging of rings, we got it. Yeah. We're not going to miss that shot.
Yep. And then also, speaking of photo lists, right? Don't do table pictures. If you're okay, right? If you have very important groups of people that you want, list those out in the formal photos versus trying to take pictures with every single person at the table at dinner. It looks messy.
At your reception, it's time to party.
Yeah.
Right.
Eat, drink, dance. Right?
Right. Okay. So the last 2 points I'm going to take.
Of course you are. Do it.
So trust your photographer. Make sure you're hiring a professional. And always remember, you get what you pay for. Wedding photographers are expensive, but we come with years and years of experience, and we're not going to miss those moments.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay, so here we are at the end of this episode. I think we learned a lot about photography.
We did. I'm
right?
so sad it's all come to an end. I can talk for hours.
I know you can. I'm so glad this one is over. I feel like you spoke more than me, and I don't like that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think so either. But quick summary, we do want to thank all of our listeners. If you guys have any other questions or any thoughts, email us. Just let us know by email, DM on Instagram, TikTok, whatever.
Send us your TikTok dances too.
Send us your TikTok dances. And also just a quick thank you to everyone who has been supporting us on Patreon. We 100% appreciate all the love.
As always, like, subscribe, smash the 5-star button.
Smash it. Yeah. Smash it hard.
And keep listening. We have lots more awesome tips and tricks to share with you, and we will see you guys on our next show.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of Unveiling Paradise.
If you enjoy our show, please follow us and rate us on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. It would really mean a lot.
And don't forget to also get on our mailing list and follow us on Instagram. Just do it already.
Until next time, this is Tessa.
And this is Joe.
And don't forget, your happily ever after
is just a plane ride away.